Opportunity to go somewhere and experience something totally different. Like, we're all normal people from the local area for the most part. You get a chance to go to Lebanon or go to Africa or wherever, it's intimidating and a lot of stuff, a big adventure, but also an opportunity to make a small bit more money because you get paid a little bit extra when you travel overseas, and you could do something with that, in your life at home. And a lot of us did that. You might head off for 6 months and come back, and you might be able to change the car, put in a kitchen at home. It's as mundane as that, but that's normal when you're in the army. That's your normality. It's routine. There's things you do on a daily basis. There's things that come up annually, and overseas is part of your life. And if you were able to go, or the opportunity was there, you would definitely go for it. I did it anyway, so, and most people would have, Yeah, we had years later, I suppose, several kind of interactions with the British Army. We actually worked with the British Army on parallel operations. There's a quarry on the northern side outside the Swanland Bar, which when explosives was to be moved in for blasting in the quarry, the British Army would fly it in, and we'd have to provide security from the southern side of the border. So, you'd be each side of a wall, talking to one another, sharing grub, shooting the breeze kind of thing, what soldiers do. And that would have happened on and off a fair bit. And there's a good story. I remember, I won't mention his name, but it was, we obviously weren't under the same circumstances as the British Army were in the north, so the threat wouldn't be as, I suppose, dangerous for us as it is for them. That's fair to say, I think. So we would have had ground support, and we would have had rations brought up from Longford and things like that if the circumstances dictated. Not always. But we were up one time, and it was teeming rain, and we had an officer with us sitting in a Nissan Patrol, and the rain is hopping off this thing. And one of the Brits says to him, "Here, Paddy, is that joke bulletproof?" And he rolled down the window and he says, "No, but it's waterproof." And the lads know what I'm talking about, but I won't mention any names.
I'd say it was probably 75% of the people ended up being local, who were members of the RDF and enlisted into the Defence Forces then that way. And people from Edgertown, Legan, Ballymahon was very strong as well, Longford Town itself, from Lish. So really the whole surrounding area.
You left out Granite. I'm not impressed.
Yeah, well, I suppose we sort of adopted the St Christopher's School next door here for years, and had Christmas parties and for them each year, and that was something that was taken over by the 4th Cav Squadron in later years, and because they had the added attraction of having tanks and armoured cars which they could bring them out in, which was probably more exciting than what we had for them. I suppose we're all involved in GA clubs, especially. We had our own team here as well, and we had a number of people who played inter-county football in different counties as well. We had, to mention, Dana Herden, who was captain Cork 2 minor All-Irelands. Sinan Downs was Railway Cup, played with Clare, played Railway Cup, had Railway Cup medals as well. And Vincent Daly, who captained Longford in 1968, the only man to do that so far in the county. Captain Longford to win Leinster Championship, and was unlucky not to win an All-Ireland, I suppose. The people of that carry a lot of sporting connections.
No, look at it. I mean, when you're talking about the local community and stuff like that, another thing that used to happen a lot was school tours and open days. We had a few open days, but where people would come in and you'd lay out all the equipment and let them have a look at it under supervision and explain it to them and all that kind of crack. And before health and safety went crazy, you'd start up a few armour cars and bring the kids for a spin around the barracks, slow and easy, because they're dodgy things. But that got hit in the head, and health and safety became, the order of the day, which was a pity because kids were getting a bit of a buzz out of that. But sure, such is life,
I think the guard room, because basically the guard room was. Was a room which you were locked into for 24 hours at a time with 3 or 4 other people. So you had to provide your own entertainment for that 24 hours. So we were always hearing stories, and other than that, you didn't have, for instance, you had no contact with the outside world when you were locked in there, so you had to make your own entertainment. So I suppose that, for me, probably was spent a lot of time in it anyway, so that's probably why.
If I had to pick somewhere, where would I pick? I'd probably pick, from initial contact and coming in, the Troopers Mess, the Troopers Club. I remember going in there in the early days, and you're talking about transitioning from being a civilian into being a soldier,
Yeah.
and you walk in there and you have to watch every word you say. It's like, it's big boy rules now, and it's and I mean in a good way, because there's a unique military humour, really unique military humour. And you went in there and you'd say something, and someone would say something like, do you swear on the cap badge? Do you swear on the officer's mess? And you're kind of going, what? Who's on duty in the switch operator? You know, crazy things that probably wouldn't mean a whole lot to other people, but it was just, you know, you were like a cat in a hot tin roof until you got your bearings around that. But it was, if you were in barracks, coffee break in the morning at 11 o'clock, the whole unit was in there. And it was too small for everybody if we were all there, and you were jammed in there, and the crack was just great. You know, a cheese sandwich and a cup of tea and a bag of potatoes and a slagging match for half an hour, and it was great crack, you know.
We always hoped it wouldn't happen, and when it actually did happen, it was a big shock. It also happened at a time, you know, economically for Longford, it was a disaster for Longford, because it was like closing a factory, like the last man standing type of factory in Longford at the time, in 2009, because Longford was big. We're really starting to feel, and the crash really began to bite at that stage. And from that point of view, and I was there on the day that the 4th Cav drove out the gate. It's a fairly poignant moment, I must say. And Hughie Farrell was on the gate, and he locked the gate and handed over the keys to the department, and that was it, basically. And it was then you really realised that it was all over.
I actually was on detachment when the news broke, and I was in the cadet school in the Curragh. I was training cadets, and I was walking across the square one morning, and a person I know let a roar over me to tell me that it's after been announced that Longford Barracks was closing, and that's the first I heard of it officially. So that was that. The decision was made. We all came back here, and there was a gradual wind down for about a month or two before the closing down, and the place was dismantled essentially. Anything that was useful was taken out of here, brought to other. It was sad. It was like picking over the bones or something, you know. The weapons all went out of here. The guard room that Ray's talking about, there was no need for a guard duty anymore because there was no weapons in the barracks. So we had a fire picket, which is just somebody here to keep an eye on the place. And eventually the day came where we were getting the chop, and I have the dubious honour of being carrying the unit pennant, not because I'm great, because I'm tall. but that was kind of my role whenever there was a parade. I got to carry this pennant, but I carried that pennant on the last day of the barracks here, and I was in one of those armoured vehicles that drove out the gate that Ray was talking about, and it was a very sad day, and it changed a lot of things for all of us, because, you know, when you look at the army as a whole and the cavalry corps as a whole, we were the only barracks that was left that was a cavalry barracks. Fermoy was also a cavalry barracks for a long time, but they closed way back. So we were the only one that was left that had its own character being cavalry, and so then that was gone, and then we were just a small fish in a big pond when we went to London after that. So it was total game changer, completely different. Yeah.
You still go back to, I suppose, it's like being in a club, and because of that, it's a club that you're coming through hard times in, and you make great friends, and you keep them for life then after that. You know?
As regards the border waxed and waned, and different things happened. When we, you know, even here it wound down with we had different operations for BSE and for and the foot and mouth disease. They went on for a long period of time. But when we went to Athlone, they put us on reserve for the border. So we were a brigade reserve. We didn't anymore have our own area. So what we would do in that, we were to cover the whole border area for our brigade. So I would have to bring a patrol up to Finner Camp, and we'd tag on with one of their guys, and we'd go around and we'd do a kind of an assessment of what the border crossings were like, and, you know, without going into too much detail about that kind of stuff, because you can't really, but the role changed in that sense. it went a lot more into the military side of things rather than the operational side of things. So it was a big routine of training people up for overseas service because the contracts for incoming soldiers had changed. So like I was an NCO at this stage and I was training lads and everything else, but so a kid had come in, he had to be got up to the right standard. His contract dictated that he had to go overseas within 5 years or he was a civilian again. So we were doing everything we could to make sure that we were able to hit those markers. You go through hard times, and I don't think you will make better friends than the friends you make when you go through hard times, because you see what a person is made of, and this is where the respect comes from, isn't it? It's kind of mutual respect, and that's what and you can pick up with a guy. I have friends all over the country, and I can pick up with a guy that I haven't seen for 10 years, just from having done an overseas tour with him, or having done exercises with him, or having done courses with him. Because that's the military life. That's one thing. The people, soldiers are some of the best people you will ever meet in your life. The second thing I would take out of it is all the hard times breeds resourcefulness. Because a lot of the time you'll be tasked with doing something that you didn't actually have the tools to hand to help you do it. But you had to get it done because there was no such thing as saying I can't do it. So you did it. And I'm like that. I'm still like that now. Thank God. I think it's a great thing, and it's something that you take from the army. It's a strength. It's just resourcefulness, and take a step back for a second, have a look at something, assess it, and it's a can-do attitude. I guess that's a big positive, isn't it?